opens at 6 p.m. and usually goes for a few hours. You can stop in whenever you want, hang out for as long as you'd like, and head out whenever you're ready. You can find the Zoom link and the details on the All About Pigeons podcast Facebook page or at pigeonpod.com. We'd love to see you there. Welcome to the All About Pigeons podcast, brought to you by the All About Pigeons nonprofit organization, which is dedicated to promoting education and promotion of the pigeon hobby. Every week, a listener requests to drive our conversations about all things pigeons. Join me, Philip Fry, as we learn and share stories about these incredible birds and this ancient hobby. Today we have with us a guest from Racing Pigeons Podcast, Kevin Miller. We're going to learn all about this podcast and how that got started. So, Kevin, thanks so much for coming on.
Sure, my pleasure, Philip. Glad to be here.
Let's get a little bit of background on you and racing pigeons and pigeons in general, how that all got started.
Yeah, well, I used to be a bird guy as far as parrots go. So my dad brought home a parakeet that his boss didn't want when I was like 6 years old, and I got hooked into the parakeets, and then it was a cockatiel, and then by high school, I was having African grays living in my bedroom, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So soon after I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I actually opened a business where I bred exotic birds, so parrots. So everything from budgies all the way up to green-winged macaws, cockatoos. At one point, I had about 100 pair of parrots, and so I sold those wholesale and retail. I had several pet stores all across the country that I'd sell them to. I also had a website back then. It was the early days of the internet, of course. I guess I'm proud to say that I have sold a parrot to somebody that lives in all 50 states. I've sold parrots to people that live in Alaska. I have sold parrots to Hawaii, which they have to be quarantined to go over there. So that was a really big deal. The first two blue-headed Pioneers to ever be imported into Hawaii, I bred them. And they imported them. That was quite a trip. So that's kind of how I got into birds. I've always been a bird guy, but eventually I decided to get out of the parrot business because it was 24/7, 365. I literally didn't have a vacation for 10 years. And my kids were younger, and I'm like, man, this is not really a life that I want anymore. Even though I love the bird business, of course. So I transitioned out of the parrot breeding, and I still kept budgies because they were small and I can kind of breed them in my garage. So I get into showing budgies. So exhibition budgies, right? It's another whole niche hobby people do, right?
Oh,
So you go
yeah.
around the country showing budgies and you'd win prizes and all this and that. Eventually I transitioned out of that as well. And I was like, man, what am I going to do? I got to have a bird, right? But I was just tired of the parrots, the hand feeding, and it's just a lot of work. And one of the guys that bred exhibition budgies was like, well, have you ever thought about racing pigeons? I'm like, what are you talking about? Racing pigeons. He's like, well, yeah, for 20, 30 years, I raced pigeons down in Florida. He's like, I don't do it anymore. He's like, but, and I'm like, well, tell me more. What's this involve? Like, what do I need? How does it work? He filled me in, and I was like, that's fascinating. Like, that is just fascinating, right? So within I don't know, probably within a year, I was buying pigeons, looking, researching how to buy, where to buy, who to buy from, building a loft, learning all about the sport. And so that was back in 2015. And luckily, I was living in Fayetteville, North Carolina at the time. And it turns out that there was a gentleman named Kerry Tilson that lived about 35 minutes away. And I kept seeing his name everywhere on the internet as far as pigeons. People kept talking about these Tilson pigeons and all that. And so I think I just called Carrie up one day. I'm like, listen, I'm new. I don't really know anything about pigeons per se, but your name's all over the internet. You're winning all these races. Like, you live 35 minutes away. Do you mind if I pop over? And he said, sure, come on over. It was super. And this is a really interesting story, but the very first racing pigeon that I ever held in my hands was the Vegas hen, the famous Vegas hen of Kerry Tilson. I
Nice.
mean, people would die to have held that bird, right? That was the first pigeon. I didn't even know how to hold a pigeon, and he's letting me hold the Vegas hen inside, of course. But it
Oh,
was
right.
fascinating, right? And so I got to hold the Vegas hen, I got to hold Troublemaker
Oh,
and
wow.
Holly as well. The Code Blue had already passed away by then, so I was not able to hold Code Blue, but it was just fascinating. I got to hold a bunch of Kerry's pigeons. And he's teaching me, that this is what's good in a pigeon, this is what's bad. And so I learned from what I would say is the master, Kerry Tilson, or one of the best flyers that we've ever had. Sadly, he doesn't fly anymore. So that's how I got into pigeons. And, I bought several birds from him and several birds from some other people back then and kind of created my little loft. And before my loft was built, I had let's see, it was a 4 by 8 by 8 cage that I built in my garage. And I actually bred 2 or 3 pairs of pigeons in there the first year and just sent them out to one loft races. And then by the following year, I had a pigeon loft in my backyard and I had started to fly locally with the club up there in Fayetteville, as well as send birds out to one loft races. That's kind of my, how I got into the pigeon hobby. Just it stems from my love of all things birds, really.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just a natural progression. And for me, it's much less time than the parrots, the hookbills. They're just so much more. Just, in the food they have to eat. It's just the preparation. Here, you just, open the bag, throw the food in, maybe mix a little supplements on it. It's way less work. And honestly, it's more enjoyable because I like the competitive nature. I am a very competitive person, but I'm very short and small and could never play sports. Unfortunately, I played golf. That was best as it got. So I can live vicariously through the birds. Like when I
There
beat
you
you and you're 6'3", my bird beats you, it's the same as me beating you. And I love that. It's like it just gives me that thrill that I can't actually get anywhere else in my life due to my physical limitations, but I can have it through them. And it's just wild. I just love it. So I was hooked immediately. I mean, it was just once I heard about it, I hadn't even held a pigeon yet, and I knew this is what I wanted to do. It's just fascinating.
You really hit the lottery with running right into a mentor like that for just coming right into the hobby like that. That's something else.
And then Thomas Baldwin lived 2 hours in the other direction. So
Oh,
before
okay.
long, I was up at his house too. So I mean, I live between Baldwin and Tilson. Like what you can't.
Yeah.
And so I learned all about taking care of pigeons, training pigeons, how to do it from Baldwin Tilson. So, now of course they haven't shared everything with me, I'm sure, but I,
Oh,
I,
yeah,
I
they
am
did.
I
They
am
told you
proud
all
to
their
call.
secrets.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right. They're not gonna tell you everything, but they are super great people. Like I said, Carrie's not really involved anymore. He has so many other interests. But he is such an interesting guy. I mean, just such a cool guy. He has so many cool hobbies and just a really neat individual to talk to. And then Thomas, I mean, Thomas and I talk. I don't maybe not daily, but multiple times a week. Like I said, I've been to his house and I've held 1148, which if people know his famous bird that is still breeding even this year. So I've been blessed with where I'm located and the friends that I've made in the sport, and so that's really helped me.
You got started, had great mentors, got birds. You joined the local racing pigeon club. What caused the effect to snowball into starting this Racing Pigeon podcast?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a long road. I was in birds for several years back then, like 2016, 2017. But then I went through a divorce. So there were some personal issues in my life that happened. I ended up selling all my birds in 2018 and moving overseas. Now, some of my birds I gave to my buddy in Florida, the guy that introduced me to the whole sport. And I said, listen, can you keep some of these for me? I don't know how long I'll be gone. But while I'm gone, why don't you breed some and we'll send them out to some one lofts or some, we did GHC Classic. He'd send a bunch there. Not a bunch. We'd only breed a couple a year. But just to kind of so I could kind of keep in the game, but not really. So anyhow, I came back to America like 2020, COVID happened. Right. And so I didn't get back into birds really. He kept them. He still had them. We started to enter a few more one loss, but we didn't have success. We didn't have the birds we needed, unfortunately. So luckily in 2024, I was able to buy my house here, built a new loft, got all my birds up from Florida. I've now acquired a bunch of new stock. So I'm expecting pretty good things this year. But as far as getting into the podcast, I mean, it just kind of snowballed from the auction. So I started an auction site first. When I was getting back into the hobby and here 23, 24, I needed to acquire some birds. I went to obviously some of the pre-existing auction sites, and I just didn't have a great experience with those sites for various reasons. Communication issues, billing issues after the fact, and I was just very disappointed in the experience. So I was just talking to my partner, John West, one day, and I said, "Man, you know what? I said I think there's an opportunity here that maybe somebody can do something different on the auction side of it." And he said, "Man, I think that's a good idea. I'm willing to let's see what we can do. And so it took about 6 months for us to build the site and work out all of the kinks, and we finally launched it last July. And it's been okay. I mean, it's hard, competing against, it's like me opening a department store next to Walmart, and expecting, but it's hard. But I'm in it for the long haul. We're not doing it to get rich. That's not my goal in anything that I do. If I can at least cover my bills, I'm good. And that's what it's doing. So, but hopefully that'll continue to grow. And then my partner Wes said, "Listen, you're always talking about pigeons. Every time you come in my office, it's pigeons this, pigeons that, pigeons that." He's like, "Why don't we do a podcast?" So John has some other podcasts that he does. He does some economic stuff, some political stuff. We won't get into any of that. But he's got the equipment. He's got the knowledge of how to produce a podcast, how to put it out there. I don't. I just do pigeons in the backyard. I don't know any of that. And so it took a while for him to convince me. I'm like, I don't think anybody's going to want to hear what I have to say. Like, I don't see how I can add value to anything that's not already out there. But he eventually convinced me to at least give it a shot. And so we did. We had our first episode drop, I think, in January, first week, right after January 1st, 2026. This week, I think, will be episode 11 or 12. I'm losing count, which is a good thing. But it just was a natural progression from my love of the sport and wanting to share the sport with people. I just think nobody knows about the sport, right? And I mentioned on my podcast in one of the early episodes that I would go to the post office to pick up birds when they would be coming in. People would send them to me or whatever. The post office workers were always curious, what's in the box? What's in the box? And I'm like, oh, they're racing pigeons. They're what? And the lady looked at me and she said, I didn't know a pigeon could run that fast. I was like,
Nice. Yeah.
what? I'm like, wait, no. That's not what they do. They fly. Come on, right? Like, and that's kind of when it dawned on me, like, man, really, nobody understands this. Like, nobody gets it. And so I just thought, well, why not? Let's try a podcast and let's see what happens, right? And so that's kind of how the idea happened and where it came from. And I don't know where it'll go, but
Nice. Yeah, that's great. I mean, and you guys are a legitimate podcast too. There's a lot of just straight YouTubers, advertising as different podcasts. You guys are actually on Spotify too. You're on Apple. You're actually on podcast forums,
yeah,
and you're doing
absolutely.
interviews with great people in the racing world. And you're focused on, I mean, your name says it all, right? Like the pigeon racing scene, which that's such a big chunk of the hobby. That's a really old side of the hobby right there. You got a lot you can tap into, a lot of people that are going to be really drawn into that too. So who's your ideal listener? Are you trying to find people who kind of have, like you said, like no idea about pigeons, or are you kind of giving advice and stuff to people who are really into it on the upper end of it, or what's your demographic that you're shooting for?
So we're shooting for those new people, the people that don't even know what this is. You're flipping down the podcast list and you're like, Racing Pigeon Podcast? What is that? Right? Like that's who we want to get, right? Now we need to do a much better job, but again, that's John and I were just not technologically advanced enough to be able to outsmart these algorithms that all these sites use, right? I know we know about them, but we don't know how to outsmart them. John obviously is not involved in the pigeon hobby at all. We got to learn these, tagging things better and all the things you have to do to get listeners. But hopefully, it's out there and hopefully people stumble upon it. That initially is who we're targeting. We're targeting people that I don't even know what a race, how does a pigeon even race? Like, what is that? And I mean, we go through, if we go back to episode one, I mean, we go through the basics, like where do they live? Where do you keep a racing pigeon? Where, what's the basic equipment you need? What's the basic food? And then, my goal is kind of as the podcast continues, that we will get into, we'll move on from those very, very basic topics to a little bit more advanced topics. Okay, now you know what a pigeon basically eats to survive. Now, what do you need to feed a pigeon to actually win a race? Or what do you need to feed a pigeon to breed it successfully? So I think that eventually we're going to branch off into the very, very beginning stuff and get into like some more advanced stuff as the podcast progresses through our episodes. So that's probably the goal. So I think that our demographic will probably shift over time. Maybe people that find us are going to grow with us, and as we progress, they progress in their flying skills and their abilities as well. And that's kind of my hope. And then eventually, obviously, well, we have already started. Sometimes we dive off and do, focus interviews on different people. That will continue as well. I just did an interview with Drew from Lavender Hill Loft. That'll be popping out this next week here. And it has nothing, it's not geared towards beginners. We're talking about something completely different. So we'll continue to do those as well, just to kind of mix it up. We don't want to focus on the same thing every week, and people get tired of listening to me every week, which I know. So we got to add some guests, and so we'll continue to do that. And Philip, one of the things that we want to focus on is we're looking for guests that maybe aren't well known, right? Like we're not looking for Mike Gannis. Not, I mean, if he wanted to come on the podcast, that's fine. But we're not looking for that. We're not looking for, McLaughlin. He's got his own YouTube stuff. He's fine. We're kind of looking for those really, really successful flyers that nobody's ever heard of, right? Outside of like their combine or their state or something like that. But that they have great stories to tell, great knowledge to share. And that's really who we want to kind of focus on. And so that's kind of my goal. It's turning out to be a harder goal than I thought to reach, but that's my goal.
Yeah, get all the quiet winners. I mean, they're
That's
obviously
right.
successful too, and everybody has different strategies that everybody else can take away from too. So yeah, that's excellent. So you're episode 11 right now. What's been kind of the biggest challenges that you've been kind of running into right now with from 0 to 11 right now?
Yeah. So I talked about one of the challenges is just finding the viewers, figuring out the algorithms, how do people find you? I think that's a big one. That's going to come in time. Me personally, because I'm the interviewer usually, is getting people to agree to appear on the podcast. A lot of these quiet winners are also, as it turns out, shy winners. They don't want to be on YouTube. They don't want the notoriety or the publicity, and trying to convince them that they have something of value to add is the hard part. I have approached probably at least four flyers, just I can think of four off the top of my head that I have approached privately and said, you would be excellent. You have ace pigeon in this state, and you've been doing this for 30 years, and man, people would love to hear. And they're like, nah, nobody would want to hear. Nobody wants to talk to me. I don't. And I'm like,
Yeah,
no, it's the opposite. Come on, right? And that is honestly the hardest part. So any of those flyers are listening to your podcast right now, please reach out to me, right? On social media, Racing Pigeon Podcast at gmail.com. Contact me. It's not scary. You can do it. If you've got a computer or even a phone, we can do this and we can have a conversation. And trust me, there are people out there who want to hear what you have to say. Doesn't matter
absolutely.
how
Yeah.
insignificant you think your accomplishments are to somebody else. You can be a mentor. That's what's important, but that's also what I'm finding to be the hardest part.
Yeah, I've ran into that too. So when All About Pigeons, we'll talk racing, rolling, fancy breeds. And so I mean, I've hit that so many times where I've talked to master breeders doing this for 50, 60 years,
Yep.
multiple points in the master breeders, and I'm like, hey, just tell me some loft management stuff, and
Yeah.
time and time again, I don't really think I have anything that I can offer. It's like, you serious? Like, and then they will like immediately turn around and just start talking pigeons with somebody else, and it's like, that's it. Like, we're just gonna talk
Exactly.
pigeons, but there is a,
Yeah.
and I don't know what it is. I think it's that trait of it's something where they just do it all the time, so they don't think of it as, it's just like a natural reaction, like pouring a glass of water. They don't think about what they're doing, but with some of the stuff they do
Exactly.
would really help if they just say how they pour that glass of water, what kind of cup they use, whatever. And that'd be so helpful.
Exactly.
We'll talk to racer guys, fancy guys, like I said, and it almost doesn't matter. Just the ones that are really, really good, even the big ones or the quiet ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're just gonna run into that. So figure out if you
Yeah.
figure out a sweet way to talk them in, tell me what that script is because I
Let
want
you
to try
know.
that too. Yeah.
Some of my interviews have been with newer people into the sport, just learning about how they got into the sport and their mentors and so forth. That's also been very interesting to me. So, like I said, I'm inclusive. If you want to come on the podcast and talk about something, there's going to be value in it for somebody, and I'm never going to say no, no matter who you are. Hopefully we'll continue to get some good interviews in the future. And I've got plans, by the way, to I'm going to go live I had to, again, did I mention I'm not a technical person, but I've downloaded some software that allows me to go live simultaneously on our YouTube channel and our Facebook channel at the same time. And I've tested it out. It actually does work. So my plan is we're going to start racing old birds here April 11th, and I'm going to try to go live while I'm like about 15 minutes or so before my birds are expected to arrive, and just kind of like let people experience that with me. Like the nervousness, the anticipation, oh, where are they? They should be here. Oh, because we use Benzing Live, so I can see when the other club members get their birds, and then I
Oh,
know
okay.
mine should be here, and if mine are not here in 12 minutes, I'm not going to win. And it's just to let people experience that. I don't know how well it'll be received, but we're going to try it for a couple races and hopefully the technology works and I remember how to do it. We'll see if people enjoy that. I'm hoping they do. We'll see how that goes. So we're going to do some interesting things. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, even with the podcast, right, and the live stream and everything else, like, what role do you see as like media in the different forms playing to help the hobby?
Well, I think you have two sets of people that fly pigeons. You have your old guys, right? Mostly men. And they are not typically too high on emailing and websites and social media. They still prefer to pick up a phone and call somebody. But then you've got the newer generation of flyers, the younger generation. They are tapped into social media and all forms of media, right? Print media, social media. Um, and so I think that that is going to play an ever increasing role in the success or failure of our sport. Let's face it, people don't talk to each other anymore, not young people. COVID taught them that they don't have to. I'm a professor, as I mentioned on my podcast. So I'm around that generation every day, all day, and they hate to talk to each other. You tell them to do group work and they look at each other like, I don't want to. I'd rather just do it myself, right? But they will sit on TikTok or they will sit on Instagram or Snapchat and talk to anybody all day long, but they will not talk to the person next to them. And so I think that's how we're going to get the next generation of flyers. It's going to be something they see on TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook or somewhere that piques their interest. And I think that's how we're going to get the next generation of flyers. So I think it already plays a big role, but I think it's going to play an even bigger role in the future for sure.
Yeah, just the use of the technology and reaching out to them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you had to sum up Racing Pigeons podcast in like one sentence to somebody like an elevator pitch, what would that sound like?
Well, if you want to learn how to raise pigeons, listen to Racing Pigeon Podcast. We'll teach you.
Can you guarantee that they'll start winning one loft races? I mean, that would be a hell of a pitch right there.
No. Can't, nothing is guaranteed in the racing pigeon world. That's the first thing
Uh,
that actually you should know. Success is not guaranteed, success is earned. You have to earn
uh,
success through hard work, dedication. But
mhm.
we're going to give you the tools and the tips and some tricks that will make your journey easier, right? You're not going to have to go knock on Kerry Tilson's door, stand in his loft for 2 hours and be lectured to like I was. Don't, I loved every minute of it. Don't get me wrong. But you don't have to do that today. If you don't like talking to strangers, talking to people, again, I called Kerry Tilson up on the phone. I was nobody. Not everybody's comfortable doing that, right? So you can watch my podcast, and if you, again, start with episode one and just go right down the line, and I'm going to teach you exactly how to take care of pigeons, how to fly them, how to train them. We eventually get into, what happens when they get sick, how to take care of them that way, everything. We're gonna talk about it all. So that's kind of the goal of the podcast, at least our first year. That's kind of our goal. We have our first year kind of set out. And then after that, like I said, we may just turn it into an interview channel or something. We'll see what happens. But I can't guarantee you're going to win a one loft race.
That's how you get your listeners right there. You start putting
For
tags like
sure,
that
if
out
I
there,
could.
guaranteed
But
to
I
be
think
the
we have a,
winner
I
of
think
all
we
your
have a
club
law against
races.
false advertising in this country, so
Yeah,
I don't want
right.
to do
It
that.
might be short term, but
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's exciting. I'm stoked about the podcast. There's certain niches that, there's so many podcasts on, certain categories or whatever. And
Yeah.
there's not actual podcasts, like I was saying earlier. There's not that many. I know Keith kind of stepped away from the roller one. He's doing a lot more YouTube stuff. And that's really
Mhm.
good though. I mean, his YouTube stuff is fantastic for the roller
Yes.
world.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, we should have straight up just for showing, more roller ones, the racing one you're doing. I mean, because,
Yep.
high flyers, I mean, it's just like
Yep.
a club, right? You get something that's, specific behind that side of the hobby, and then that grows, but we all growing together, it's pigeons.
Exactly. Exactly. It's all pigeons. Like I mean, I have racing pigeons. That's my main thing. I also have Vorburg shield croppers out there as well.
Oh, there you
That's my
go.
show breed
Yeah,
that I breed. So you probably know
nice.
something about those, don't you?
Yeah, those are nice birds. Yeah, yeah, there you go.
Those are very nice birds. And I've got reds, yellows, blacks, and something called a strawberry, which I had no freaking
Oh,
idea what
nice.
that was when it hatched. I went back to the breeder I got him from. I'm like, what is this? He's like, oh, we call that a strawberry. I'm like, we don't have that in racing homers.
Nice.
But so I don't show them. They're actually what I use for droppers. But I breed several every year. I usually, people kind of want them. I guess there's not that many people that breed Warburgs, which I didn't realize until I went to try to buy them. And I had to buy them from a guy out in Washington. Nobody on the East Coast, I couldn't find them. And he would only sell me one pair. He's like, that's all I'll sell. I don't have any more. I'm like, okay, take what I can get. I've recently sourced some more out of Florida, so I've got some different blood now, but they're interesting and I could show them. I've got a hen out there who I think is show quality. I mean, she is when you look at the standard for Vorburg powder, I mean, you put her there, it's like she looks just like this picture. But unfortunately, I didn't band her. I'm not an MPA member, so the ones I'm banning this year have AU bands on. They have racing. Turns out it's the same size band. So I just bought extra AU bands. I'm just throwing them on the powders, but I don't know if you can show an AU banded bird in an MPA show. I kind of
I
doubt
don't
it.
know.
So yeah, I don't know. But I'll tell you, when I retire, I will probably show the Warburgs as well. When I can travel to
Yeah.
Louisville and
Oh,
some of the
okay.
shows. They got shows up in Pennsylvania, I believe. They got a pretty big one up there. The Louisville one, and then the NPA National moves around, I believe, right?
Right.
It's
Yep. Yeah, it's different place every year.
right now I just can't get away with everything I've got going on. But someday I'd like to show the Warburgs. I've never showed a pigeon. I've showed budgies, I've showed other birds. So it would kind of be interesting just to see what that looks like.
Pull of the jar of worms.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, right? Getting back to the podcast, it's very interesting when John and I were, well, when he was trying to convince me, he said, "Well, look, I've looked. There is no podcast focused on racing pigeons." He said, "I found this other one called All Pigeons Podcast." And so I was like, "Oh, really?" I'm like, "What is that?" So we actually found your podcast and I listened to a couple episodes because if you were already doing this, I didn't want to do it too. I mean, if the niche was already filled, then I didn't want to step on your toes, and there's no need to have two of these, right? But when I realized that you do all pigeons, as obviously in your name, right? I was like, you know what? I think there could be a potential where both of us could exist and both be successful. I'm glad to be on here. I'm glad you reached out. I'm glad that we see ourselves as partners in this education effort because
Absolutely.
it's really going to
Yeah.
take all of us to keep this hobby. It's getting expensive. I mean, pigeon food, medication, most of it's imported.
Yeah.
With the tariffs and everything going, I mean, the sport's just getting more and more expensive.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's just hurting our ability to grow over time. And so we need more of us. We need more of all of us. And
Yeah.
so I applaud you for what you do, just with everything pigeons, because you're right. They're all pigeons. They all have a purpose. They all have a reason for being, right? Humans bred them for reasons, and we need to propagate that and keep this going for future generations. I mean, it'd
Yep.
be really sad if there was no more Vorburg powders on the world, right? So
Right.
even though they don't do anything but sit there and look stupid, but they have the they have the coolest personalities.
If someone who's out there looking for your podcast, so you're on Spotify, can you give us all
Yep.
the plugs so people can find you?
Well, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Music, and then we have our YouTube channel. We also have a Facebook. They call them channels on Facebook. I don't know what it's called, but we also have a Facebook.
Okay.
So if you just search Racing Pigeon Podcast, you should find it on all of those sites. If you're able to on your YouTube, we can send you some links and you can drop them down below if you want. But
Okay.
we're pretty easy to find. Pretty much if you find our Facebook. I link all the YouTube episodes as they're released on our Facebook page, so you'll really find everything on Facebook if that's your preferred way to find things.
Everybody jump over there, check it out. It really is. It's a great podcast, real informative. He's doing a great work. The only way we can, get this out there, the algorithm, like it, share it, do comments and stuff, engage with it in whatever way you can. And, all this talk about, what can we do for the hobby? It's like just little stuff like that. I don't know how much calories it takes to click a like button, but it helps,
Exactly.
it
Yeah, it
really
takes
helps. So,
nothing. Click the subscribe, click the like. It's
right.
just 1 second, right?
Yep. So
And then you're informed of every time a new episode drops. I mean, we're gonna keep having some cool guests on. We're gonna try to get the one and only Thomas Baldwin, who has never given an interview to anybody. He doesn't do that. But like I said, I'm very good friends with him. I think we are anyhow. And so I've approached him about it. We're probably going to make it happen at some point, and that's going to be a killer episode. It's probably going to be more than one episode, to be honest with you. The man has been flying pigeons since he was literally 5 years old and has accomplished more than I'll ever accomplish in the sport in my lifetime. I guarantee you. So we'd love to get him on, but we'll find more interesting people for sure. So stay tuned.
absolutely. Kevin, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you.
Sure, man. Appreciate it, Philip. All the best.
The lounge opens at 6 p.m. and usually goes for a few hours. You can stop in whenever you want, hang out for as long as you'd like, and head out whenever you're ready. You can find the Zoom link and the details on the All About Pigeons podcast Facebook page or at pigeonpod.com. We'd love to see you there. Thank you for listening to another ad-free, listener-requested episode of the All About Pigeons podcast. If you like the show and want to help it keep it going, as well as supporting your other pigeon promotional work, head to the website PigeonPod, that's pigeonpod.com. You can make a donation there. If you can't make a donation today, support the show by giving us a good 5-star review wherever you're listening to us at right now. That really helps the podcast and helps the algorithm get us out there to other people who might not know about Pigeon Podcast. If you have any episode requests, upcoming pigeon shows, competition results, or you want to be a guest on the show and just talk about some pigeons, or you have a shout out for a friend, shoot us an email at staff@pigeonpod.com. Thanks again for listening. We really appreciate your support. And remember, together the hobby thrives. Support each other and enjoy your pigeons.